Well, my favorite pickle pot bit the big one. I overwatered the pot and then it rained too hard and there were 2 inches of standing water and, well, this happened. None of the plants survived, of course, so it's time to do something about it. So today we're going to fix the pot. The first step in this hour-long process of sweating is to remove the pot from the current location. So here's where it was and here's where it ended up with all of the dirt removed. And you can see there's just one tiny little, about a ½ inch size hole at the bottom of the pot. It's really not enough drainage for a pot of this size, but after talking through with my lovely home gardening experts, the idea of possibly breaking the pot to drill a few more holes in it just didn't really sound like a good idea. So we're gonna try a little bit of a different approach and see if it works. So the approach is going to be to mix in some extra perlite into the soil. I really feel like the soil is a little denser than it ought to be. I'm fairly sure it started off as potting soil, but it seems like it's really kind of holding more water than it ought to. By adding perlite in, it should lighten the load a little bit, make it a little bit easier to drain, and also just a little less clumpy. When I removed the soil from the pot, I moved it into a wheelbarrow. By doing that, I had a little more working room to throw in the perlite and mix it together, so that's what I'm doing here. I want to make sure it's nice and mixed up, so I'm also going to take a shovel to it just to try to take the bottom part, move it up to the top, and make sure it's got a good mix. I'm also going to put a couple of pieces of pavestone underneath the planter. That way it's separated from the ground a little bit, and this more than anything should really improve the drainage. Prior to this, I had it sitting directly against the dirt. Once that didn't work, I actually moved it onto another piece of just solid pavestone, but even then it was making contact. The hole got plugged up again. I think this way, keeping it actually away from the ground, not making any contact with any type of stone should really help. This is one hell of a heavy pot, and the last thing I need to do was break myself trying to move it, so I roped in a stronger human being to get it moved back in place. Now it's time to refill the pot with all the dirt. With the wheelbarrow being so full, I had a bit of a hard time getting to mix the bottom of the dirt with the perlite. So I'm gonna throw a little bit more in on the top and just kind of work it into the first 4 or 5 inches of soil. Now that the soil's amended, I'm gonna also add in some slow release fertilizer. This is some stuff I picked up at Callaway's. I'm excited to give it a try. I'm not particularly familiar with it, but it looks like it's pretty good stuff based off the label, so let's see how it does. According to the instructions for a 24-inch diameter pot, it calls for 8 tablespoons of this fertilizer worked within the first 3 inches of soil. I'm gonna start with 6 tablespoons just because I'm not familiar with this particular mix. I'm starting with a little less because I've already screwed up this pot and I don't really want to screw it up again, and I'd rather just start on the low side. Mix, 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 rough it all up, mix it in the dirt, and it's almost done, and you get the idea. Now for the fun stuff, let's plant some things. This is a flamethrower coleus. It likes partial shade, it is a super lime green, and it's gonna look really cool if it likes the light and it likes the dirt and the damn pot drains, so I'm pretty stoked. It's just a little root bound, so once I get it out of the pot, I'm gonna break up the root ball just a little bit so it's happy in its new home. Onto some garden phlox. This will get anywhere from 2 to 4 feet tall. In a pot, it's not gonna get quite as big, but I'm still hoping it grows a little bit taller than it is right now, and you'll see why in a few seconds. Next up, we have a sun patient. I'm not exactly sure which variety, but I really love the darker foliage on it, and the pink is really close to the same color as the phlox. So I think these two are going to look really good together with the coleus in the middle. So here's the reason why I want the phlox to get tall. This is a euphorbia. I think it's a Manao is the actual variety. It's pretty big, it's pretty fluffy, it's a really cool plant. I've been looking everywhere trying to find one, and I finally found one the other day at Fossil Creek Nursery. They had it. Really excited to find it, but you can see it's a pretty big plant, and right now the phlox is getting a little lost behind it. I'm hoping the phlox will kick into high gear, outgrow the top of it, and that they'll balance out. If they don't, I might switch positions and put the euphorbia behind the phlox and move the phlox forward. And finally, proven winners, you have proven how wonderful you truly are with your Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Purple Sweet Potato Vine. I love how many different varieties of sweet potato vine are starting to show up on the market, and this color in particular is just going to look really good with the rest of the plants in the pot. I'm going to give this guy a little extra space around him because he's going to fill in. Sweet potato vine always does. So it'll look a little bald for right now, but that's okay. I really think this pot, with all the different colors and the different textures, is just going to be amazing, considering it's really not the best time to be potting when it's 100 degrees out in the middle of Texas summer in July. Now to cover up the paved stone with a little extra mulch that I just have laying around next to the pot. Finally, the moment of truth. Will this stupid pot drain? And it turns out, yeah, it's a little slower than I would still like, but it's draining. I can hear the water coming out from below the pot, so I think this is a success. This was a whole lot of work to take on a July Sunday. It's hot. Plants don't like being transplanted this time of year, so consider this really kind of a last resort. This time of year, you should be enjoying your existing plants, not planting new ones, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to fix the problem, and it gave me an opportunity to replace the plants with those that are a little more appropriate for the level of sun I now get in this garden. I think it turned out great. Thanks everyone for watching again. Sorry these are not as good as Mom's videos. She's funnier than I am. Here's a picture of a cat. Bye!